to get it to overtime. Brett Maher. It all rides on his toe. And the kick is... Oh! It hits the upright. No good! Washington wins it.
They end the streak. Dallas 2 years in a row. 2-0, 2-0. That comes to an end. You thought he made it? It was close.
It was hooking. I was holding my breath the whole way.
Oh, my goodness. What a football game.
You know what? From 47, if it had been kicked like this, it would have been good.
You're exactly right.
Hey, hello, my Redskins fans. Welcome back once again, my fellow feathered tribesmen, into this channel where we discuss everything Washington Redskins. Go to that refrigerator of yours, pull out yourself a nice tall glass of whatever your preference. Sit back, kick your feet up, and let me take the helm for just a little while. Not always agree, but the admission here is free. I am your West Coast host, Burgundy Fly Guy, and this is All right. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. I've been busy working the last couple of weeks. I was not able to get on and actually do a video. When I had a chance to upload a video from last week, it was already Friday. So without further ado, two really big games we've had the last couple of weeks. The first week that we had 2 weeks ago was a beautiful victory against the Dallas Cowboys. That was a victory that I think a lot of us were riding high on for a week. A lot of us were. And the interesting part about that game was, besides the game was phenomenal. The thing that impressed me the most about that game afterwards was the way that the Redskins fans took the victory. Most of us had a lot of really glowing things to say about it, and a lot of us were really impressed with the victory, very happy during the victory. But then the one thing happened that I think is a learned behavior that has been conditioned in Redskin fans for years, and that is when you've got another division rival coming up right after that, all too often when you ride that surf at its apex and then only to realize that there's not much behind it. You've got about a week's worth of gloating to do and victory revels to partake in, and then all of a sudden your team lets you down and ends up looking nothing like they did the week before. Year after year after year after year, Redskin fans have had to put up with that, and I think a lot of us saw that train coming before it even got to us. There were those of us that were really, really happy with the victory, but we kind of saw, that hit coming. We kind of feel the footsteps coming in behind us, like we're getting ready to take that big hit, and we may have ousted the hated Dallas Cowboys, but to come back and get back-to-back dual victories in such a tough division, New York is just the team. On many occasions have they come in, and they've looked like absolute hell during the season, but for some reason come in and just destroy us. An interesting thing is that I've been hearing on social media, I've been hearing on certain radio shows where they've talked about Kirk Cousins and his performance against the NFC East. And the interesting part about it is that Kirk never really did very well against New York. Kirk always sucked against New York. New York always had Kirk's number. Kirk would turn up some of the worst games against them. They would find a way to jump routes. They'd find a way to intercept passes. They'd find a way to throw his timing off. They'd find a way to sack him. And even though our season we were looking really, really well, Kirk would come into a game against New York and just look like absolute trash. Which is not to say that Alex Smith looked any better, because he didn't. He didn't really look a whole lot better in this game. There were a lot of passes he left on the floor that really I probably have expected a little bit more from him. But then again, he's been consistent at it. He's been doing it the last 3 weeks. And I think it was one of the things that's been saving this offense has been this defense. Now, before I go into exactly my synopsis of each game, the one thing I would like to say, and this has been coming up the last couple of years, and I think it's my place at this point to finally say something. Something came up where there were comments that were made about this rivalry between the Washington Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. There are some individuals, and I'm not going to point anybody out because I rarely do, and it's not one individual. It's a lot of individuals. This is a very, very common theme where you have an individual that comes out and says this is not a rivalry between Washington and Dallas. And they will come forth with their reasons as to why this is no longer a rivalry or why this is not a rivalry and hasn't been for the last 20 years. Last year, Dallas swept us. It was not good. And my comments, I've never commented on the rivalry between Dallas and Washington in regards to whether it's still a rivalry or not. To me, it's not even an argument. There are those of you out there that would believe that you take a look at timelines and you take a look at the history of these two teams going after each other and you say it's not like the 60s and the 70s. Not that any of you would know, because you weren't alive back then. I wasn't even alive back then. But to say that it's no longer the same, there's a lot of things that aren't the same. And to say that it's no longer a rivalry, my comment to that is if you're going to base the word or if you're going to base the concept of a rivalry on win-loss record, you're missing out on a lot. My comments as to whether the Washington Redskins and Dallas Cowboys are a rivalry, absolutely they are. I don't quantify and I don't limit my definition of a rivalry to win-loss records. It doesn't work that way at all. I mean, I would consider it to be one side of the Rubik's Cube. But to make up all the sides of the Rubik's Cube, no, you're talking about just a very, very small fraction of what I would consider a rivalry to be. Look, you can talk about game, and there's a lot of you that will know what I'm talking about when I say this. When you've got two football teams, we're talking Friday Night Lights here. We got two football teams that are close to each other in geography, and often this happens where one team just doesn't like the other. And even though over the course of many, many games and many, many years, you've got one dominant football program that always comes into town and rolls over the other guy, and it's a huge rivalry because whether they're close together in geography or whether there's some history between the two of them, whether they reside in the same town or just close by to each other, they're just a bus ride away. Whatever the reasons may be as to why it's considered a rivalry, there's always that game that your football team looks forward to playing, regardless of who's on the field, regardless of which era it is. It could have been in the 50s, it could have been in the 60s, it could have been in the 2000s, it could be now. All you know is that for generations, That rivalry has been there. That hatred has been there. That dislike on that particular night has been there. And you always play a little bit more on that night than you do on the other nights that you play. Or you always come out in force as a fan base a little bit more on that night that you do on other nights, because there may be that one opportunity where something magical may happen, whether it's a victory, whether it's, I don't know, the way in which you lose. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's not necessarily based on win-loss, though. Now, you can't tell me that under those pretenses, if you come out and play harder, and if your team shows up a little bit more and your fan base is a little bit more energized, you can't tell me that the reason why they're doing it is because of their win-loss record last year, or because that particular team won last year, or the other particular team won last year. It's not about win-loss. It's not about win-loss. It's about hatred. Hate. Absolute seething hate. That's what it's about. It's about not liking the other team and everybody that came with them. The entire entourage that rode into town with them, everybody that came in the caravan, the way that they rub your nose, and the fact that they make fun of your little mascot, the fun of your the stupid little grass on your field, and your funny little stadium, and your ugly looking cheerleaders. They do it every single year. Every single year they roll into town and pick on you. Every single year there's a big splash in the newspaper about how much you suck and you've lost again this year. It's a rivalry that way. It's not based on win-loss record. It's just pure hatred. And it's a little bit like that with the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. This has been going on for years. I can't tell you what the win-loss record is from the 1970s and the 1980s. And frankly, neither can either of you. Not unless you look it up on the internet, because you don't know, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the win-loss record was. The fact of the matter is you don't like the Dallas Cowboys. You're not going to sit there and tell me that, well, I don't like the Dallas Cowboys because last year they beat us. If you say that, you have not been watching football long enough. You haven't been watching sports long enough. I've been watching this game. I've been watching this team. I have been watching this rivalry for the better part of my entire life, and I'm older than a lot of you out there. And I'm telling you, I don't care what the win-loss record is. I really, really don't. We could come into this football game with 2 wins. We could come into this football game undefeated. A loss to the Dallas Cowboys is absolutely unacceptable. I don't care what last year's record is. Ask me before the game 2 weeks ago how much I cared about us getting swept last year. I don't care. I don't give a good goddamn. And you know what? If we end up winning our last game against Dallas this year and sweeping them next year for 2019, right before we go to play against the Dallas Cowboys, ask me how much I cared that we swept them this year. I'm not going to care. I am not going to care. The only thing I'm going to care about is that it's a game against Dallas, and I hate Dallas. I hate everything about Dallas. Now, you tell me if you consider this a rivalry when I consider the Dallas Cowboys to be just a step, just a little bit of a step above child trafficking. Because that's how much hatred I have for the Dallas Cowboys. So when this victory came out last week, you can imagine how happy I was that we won. Now, am I going to remember this in 2020? No, I'm not going to care. Is my hatred for the Dallas Cowboys going to be as strong? I can guarantee you it could probably get stronger. I don't think it'll get any less strong, though. I doubt that it hasn't been less strong in 30 years. It's been about the same amount of hatred, a weight in hatred. It's been about the same for years and years and years and years with me. So, frankly, if you're coming into these football games and you're just laissez-faire about the impact of a Dallas Cowboy Washington Redskin matchup because of win-loss records, then you don't need to be talking on the same channels as us. You don't need to be commenting in the same wavelength as us because you're not there. You're not there. This is a rivalry. It's not based on win-loss. You hate them. If you know anything about Washington Redskin and Dallas Cowboys history, this goes back to the very genesis of the Dallas Cowboys franchise. This is how far back this hatred goes. Okay, so enough about the win-loss stuff and the win-loss crap. To me, the only time when the win-loss record matters is getting into the playoffs, because they're a division rival, and division victories and division losses count when it gets in the playoffs. That's the only time I give a good goddamn about whether we beat Dallas win-loss record going into each season, is if you're looking at going into the playoffs. And right now, the way that things are going, we are performing like a playoff contender. We're performing on the level of a team that is looking at a possible postseason berth here, because we have played two very, very strong, two very tough, I'll use that word, two very tough division rivals. And moving on into the New York Giants, it does not matter what the New York Giants record is. On many occasions, the New York Giants have had a losing record, and we have gone into New York and lost. That's happened on many occasions. They've looked like absolute hell this year. And I could have told you that going into this football game, it was going to be a knockdown drag-out. In fact, to tell you the truth, I'm very curious as to seeing what our injury report's going to look like at the end of this game, because Trent Williams went down in this game, and I have not seen the report. I ended up watching this game late, and I'm pretty sure there's more information out on it now, and I have not looked it up. And I won't look it up as of yet. I'll probably look it up tomorrow. But Trent went out in the third quarter, and I have a sneaky suspicion that we did it as a precaution. That we took a look at this game and said, you know what, this game is still very, very close. We're 2 touchdowns away, but the way that our defense has been playing, we've been playing very, very stout defense. We've been holding them. We've already got multiple sacks. The time that Trent went out of this game, we already had like 4 and 5 sacks on Eli Manning. And I think it was getting to the point where, we have an all-pro left tackle, the leader on this offense, and a huge mainstay. Are we really going to want to sacrifice his health at this point to a team that's barely won 2 games? Probably not. And I can understand the logic in that, and I saw the logic in that when the fourth quarter came around and we saw that Ty Nsekhe was going to be in the game. And when I saw that Ty Nsekhe was in this game, I said, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I am perfectly fine with that. In fact, that's a smart move. In my opinion, that's a great move. If I'm a coach and another coach comes up to me and says, hey, would you want to take Trent out of this game? I say, looking at all the advantages and disadvantages, that makes a lot of sense. Let's get Trent out of there. Let's get Ty Nsekhe some reps there at left tackle. And Ty Nsekhe didn't do all too bad. I watched him for the better part of the time that he was in there, and he actually didn't do too bad of a job. He's no Trent Williams, but it gave our backup some time to get in there and see a couple of snaps. And that's going to be important because we're going to have depth at that offensive line position. And it's nice to see a guy like Ty Nsekhe come in and do a fairly good job, because it looks like we have a very, very deep defensive or offensive line. And for the most part, we do. Because New York's defense is they're not anything to shake a stick at. They're actually very, very good. And those boys that they have up front are always very good. So I was impressed to see Ty Nsekhe go in and do well. Back to the Dallas Cowboy game, throwing out some stats for those of you that were impressed by this victory, and I was impressed with this victory as well. Some common themes here that I'm seeing. One of the things that's impressed me the most, and I've mentioned this before in a couple of my other videos, Adrian Peterson has really, really shown up for us this season. And it's getting to the point where he's starting to make a liar out of me, and that's great. That's awesome. I'm welcoming it. Please, turn me into a liar. I said that this guy wouldn't last beyond a couple of weeks because of his age, and he was not going to be able to withstand the punishment at his age, and he's been able to do it. Against the Dallas Cowboys, he had, 99 yards rushing, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, he had more than that. Against the Dallas Cowboys, it looks like, no, he had 99 yards rushing. He had 24 carries for 99 yards. He was averaging about 4 yards a carry. Now, taking a look at his average, or the yards that he picked up against the New York Giants, he had 149 yards rushing. His longest was that 65-yard touchdown. I got to tell you, that 65-yarder, I went back and watched it. It's just one of those ones where you watch him play, and you see him on that play, and he comes around the corner, and he's got like the last 40 yards to go, and it looks like he's starting to run out of steam. And it's one of those highlight plays a person makes where they run out of steam, and you can feel yourself gaining fatigue, because you're excited, and you want him to make a touchdown out of him. You see people closing in behind him, and he's able to make the touchdown, which was, he deserved it. He really, really, he deserved it. He's got a lot of rushing on us, a lot of rushing with us, and with the touchdown that he got in that game, that was something that he desperately needed. And so kudos to him on 149 yards, and of course he got 100 yards before. That's 250 yards rushing. And to put an even finer point on it, that's 259 yards rushing on 2 division rivals. Now, I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. One of the biggest caveats that I've always had against some of our former players, is that a lot of them do really, really well against obscure football teams. AFC, NFC West teams that come in and you'll find 2 and 3 sacks. But I've always, my measuring stick for a good veteran player on this football team or a good young player on this football team is your performance against a division rival, because those are the games that count. One of the reasons why the New York Giants looked a lot tougher in this game and why it looked a lot tougher for us to score in this game is because it's a division rival. Okay, we play each other twice a year, every year. Once at home and once away. These teams know each other. These teams, I mean, how long has Olivier Vernon's been playing against the Washington Redskins? That guy knows our football team. And there's times that his instincts are spot on. I tell you, I get so sick and tired of seeing Olivier Vernon's name because the guy is almost everywhere. He's a great third and fourth quarter player. He's a guy that you wish you had on your team, but as a rival, he's just one of those guys that just kind of makes you clench your teeth and go, God, that Olivier Vernon again. Now, I don't know how many times you see Olivier Vernon every once in a while will make a great play against any other team, but for some reason against the Washington Redskins, and I'm telling you, it's that way because instinctually it's there. When you know a team that well, you know their tendencies, you know their strengths, and especially you know their weaknesses. New York went after our weaknesses in this football game. They didn't go after Norman with Odell Beckham Jr. going deep. They knew that they were going to go to that. They've always known that. That's one of the things about the New York Giants they've always known. They've always known their third down matchups that they want. And that's the thing. I know the third down matchups that are weak for us right now. We're weak at outside linebacker, and we're weak at corner, at right corner. And a lot of us were really, really hoping that in this game you were going to see that matchup. You were going to see the proper matchup with our third down options. So you wanted to see a Josh Norman going up against an Odell Beckham Jr., especially on third down. That didn't happen in this game. And that's frustrating to see. We don't know. I don't know necessarily when Quentin Dunbar is going to be due back, but it's going to be a welcome sight when he does come back. So that's going to be great there. The Dallas game, the one thing that's impressing me right now with our defense especially is the way that we are shutting down the running game. We've gone up against some very, very, very good running backs in this league, and we have held them to probably some of the lowest numbers that they've got right now. And we had a big test with Saquon Barkley coming in. And, to kind of take you guys back to the NFL draft, when the New York Giants drafted Saquon Barkley, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal because the New York Giants really needed a playmaker like Saquon Barkley. They had some deficiencies, and obviously with the high draft pick that they got from last year, their team was really, really down and out, and picking up a Saquon Barkley was huge for them. And if you're a fan of a team that's not the New York Giants in the NFC East, you're taking a look at a Saquon Barkley pickup going, oh man, Saquon Barkley, really? We're going to have to defend against Saquon Barkley twice a year for however long he plans on being in the league. So not only do we got Ezekiel Elliott, we got Saquon Barkley now too. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles can go out and sign anybody that they want to in the offseason. I'm more worried about these rookies that are coming in because you're looking at least the next 5 years. At the very least, the next 5 years of having to contend against very young, very healthy, very talented running backs. And if they get offensive lines that push really, really good in front of them, you're in for a world of hurt. And this particular game, the New York Giants have had a lot of problems on offense in their offensive line. And even though I was surprised that they played about average in this game, I was expecting the New York Giants offensive line to have this game circled in their calendar. Say, we may not be able to run on very many people, but we're going to be able to run against the Washington Redskins. We're going to circle that game. We're going to want to go into this game. We don't care who from Alabama they have on their football team. We're going to go in there and we're going to put those two young men to the test, and we're going to run Saquon Barkley all over them. Well, that didn't happen. We held Saquon Barkley to some great manageable yardage. He got the football a lot, but I was really impressed with our tackling. I was impressed with the way that New York ended up using him, but I was also even more impressed with the way that we were actually able to key on him and play and not allow him the big haymaker, the big time prime time plays. Because you open up Saquon Barkley, you open up Odell Beckham, and if you've already got a deficiency at corner, that's not that's a chain hit combo you do not want to try to recover from because you're not going to recover from it very well. So the key to allowing, the key is to allow every once in a while an Odell Beckham Jr. to have his highlight reel moment, but to make sure it doesn't get followed up by anything else. And we did that. We held Saquon Barkley down, and we managed Odell Beckham Jr. And the one thing that I was going to say going into this football game, I didn't have a whole lot of. I personally didn't see that I didn't think we were going to win this game. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I didn't say it in a previous video. I didn't come out with a previous video, but I'll say it right now. I did not think we were going to win this game, and I didn't think we were going to win this game because I just felt that New York's defense was going to get a lot more turnovers and capitalize on those turnovers more and gain that momentum and be able to pull out a victory on us because of our inability to score in the second half and some of the injuries that we have on offense and the way that our quarterback is unable to really get up and start it. I don't know what to say about Alex Smith. Alex, there's moments where you think that he's starting to get the hang of it, and then there's moments like, man, I don't know what I was thinking. He still hasn't got it. To me, the key to winning this football game was to utilize the one weapon we have not utilized at all, hardly on this season, and that is Jordan Reed. And when we came out swinging with Jordan Reed by the third or fourth play had already had a couple of receptions and already had moved the chains for us on a first down conversion. And it was looking like we were starting to do really, really well. And then we started to move away from him. Once that running game got going, and once some of our passing started to do really well, we moved away from Jordan Reed. And then there was that bumble there towards the end of the football game. I think it was the fourth quarter. We tried throwing to him on a third down, and Alex, I don't know what happened. It was a timing situation, a miscommunication situation, but the pass got bumbled, and Jordan Reed hit it up in the air and almost got picked off. Things that you don't want to see. But the things you do want to see is more implementation with Jordan Reed into this offense. You have to do it. You're paying this kid way too much money. He's way too much of a playmaker to ignore him. You have to give him the football, and you've got to try to find a way to instill confidence in your quarterback. And that is where the soothsayer quarterbacking ability of a Jay Gruden needs to start coming through. Okay, talk about a former quarterback. Talk about a guy who knows quarterbacks and does well with quarterbacks, was brought in here to help flourish our quarterbacks. I'm expecting a little bit more from Jay Gruden in his communication with our veteran Alex Smith. He needs to get more production out of him. He needs to get Alex a little bit more out of his comfort zone. They even brought it up in this broadcast with the deep pass. The deep pass that got the pass interference call. The commentators even said what the Washington Redskin fan base already knows. There are some advantages to throwing it deep, even if you think that he's not going to get it. And that's one of the advantages, is drawing an offside or drawing a penalty, which is going to pretty much bring the ball down to the side of the penalty, which is pretty much as good as catching the football. Those of us that know football know this is basic football 101. And he doesn't have to do this all the time, but he just needs to have more confidence throwing that football down the football field. I don't know if we're ever going to see it this year. I really, really don't. I think the only time you're going to start seeing it on a consistent basis is if we start getting really, really desperate. And we're not there yet. We just got two massive victories against two, I don't care what anybody says, two very, very tough division win games for us. This division is not easy. This division is always in contention every single year because of its toughness. For those of you that don't know, there's never been a consistent winner, and I don't know, about the last 10 years or so, there hasn't been a consistent back-to-back winner of this division. It's gone between pretty much all four teams. I mean, there's not a team that has continually sucked every single year. We keep juggling to get to the top. Everybody keeps juggling to get to the top, and right now the Washington Redskins are off to the best start that I have seen in years. We were off to 5-2. We're sitting at first place in the NFC East, and frankly, to be honest with you, with the injuries we had coming into the season, I did not see this coming at all. We're playing really, really well. I think there are a couple of us out there that need to acknowledge that we may not have been happy with the Deron Payne pick at number 1, but the way that cohesion between Allen and Payne and Ioannidis, the way we're mixing that up, the way that we're mixing those players together, the way that they are commanding the gaps that they are playing in, and that's really all it is just to take command of the gap that you were in. And when that running back comes in, you got to make a play on that running back, even though you've got somebody in your face. all three of these guys in a 3-4 defense are doing a really, really good job. Even in this game, maybe it's because the New York Giants aren't that good. I don't think that's necessarily it, but our linebackers did a little bit better in this football game too. We weren't standing around and waiting for the play to come to us so much. We were actually making plays towards the line of scrimmage and being aggressive in between the tackles, and that's something that I love to see. I really, really enjoy seeing that. I don't like sit and wait linebackers. I've never liked them. I like the guys that are aggressive, that like to get in there, and even though it's a sea of bodies and you're running around in a massive glob of 300-pound men throwing each other around, it's not any place for the feeble to be. And it's very, very difficult. But still, you've got to get in there and you've got to be aggressive. And this last game was one of the first games I've seen in a long time where I've seen our linebackers really step up and do that. DJ Swearinger. You know, I remember the first time I mentioned DJ Swearinger's name was when he was playing for Houston. And I never liked him. I never liked DJ Swearinger because when I first got to learn his name was a very, very negative time in his life when I don't even remember who it was against. I think it was against a New Orleans Saints player where rather than the Saints players coming across the middle on a passing route and rather than catching the ball and taking the player up high, DJ, rather than taking the penalty and the fine that was very prolific. This is right around the time when the very first rules and fee and then the fines were starting to get handed out by the NFL because of the concussion protocol. And I think the concussion protocol is probably 2 years old at the time. Very, very fresh. Very, very controversial. DJ Swearinger took out the knees of this individual and ended his season. And I had made a comment in a video about the changing tide of the NFL and the way that this game was being officiated. And I was not a fan of what it was that DJ Swearinger did. But I recognize that DJ Swearinger was a very good player. Now that we've got him on the Washington Redskins, I was questioning as to whether we were actually going to be able to use him. Because not only of his age, but I've always considered him to be more of an inside-the-box safety. More of a strong safety, a guy that comes in and helps on running the ball and assists. I never really understood why you'd want a DJ Swearinger in the slot, why you'd want a DJ Swearinger guarding deep half, why you'd want a DJ Swearinger out in the flat against very, very speedy, high agility running backs, because he never struck me as an individual that could do that. DJ Swearinger is starting, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I really, really can't believe I'm saying this. But DJ Swearinger is starting to come into his own in the Washington Redskins, and he's the first player in a long time that I would have to say is starting to live up to the number that he's wearing. He's the first one that I've seen, and he's off to a hell of a start. He really, really is. He's off to a hell of a start. Had a couple of interceptions in this game. I don't even know. I wish I had it in here somewhere. Right now, the number of interceptions that he has for the season. Let's see, what do we got here? He had 2 interceptions against. We had 2 interceptions against New York, and I'm seeing fumbles. He caused a fumble against the Dallas Cowboys and recovered it. And he also caused a fumble against the Carolina Panthers. I'm seeing those statistics. He's, for the last 3 weeks, from Carolina, Dallas, New York especially, and if I'm going to say this about other individuals, I'm going to say it about him. To be DJ Swearinger and playing as well as he has played against 2 division rivals, that's huge. That's massive. There's not very many players out there that can hold that mantle up right now. He's one of the reasons why we're sitting at 5-2. He's one of the reasons why our offense is able to come out on the football field and give it another go, because he's got this defense pumped up to such a degree that they're playing better than we've seen them play in a long time. And right now it's a huge controversy right now with DJ Swearinger. Some of the comments he's making off the field about this team being as good as Ray Lewis's defense, who cares? I don't care about any of that. I don't even care if it's true. I don't care if it's fake. are we playing right now like, the old Super Bowl caliber team that Ray Lewis played on? No. I mean, of course not. I mean, I wish we had a Terrell Suggs to rush the passer at this point, that he was at that caliber of a player at that particular time. We don't have that player right now. But are we playing very, very well? Absolutely. And if you want to go out there and think that you're Ray Lewis and think that you're Sean Taylor and think that you're whomever, the 84 Bears, and start, trying to whoop some ass that way, you tell yourself whatever it is you want. You can tell yourself you're Princess Athena, for Christ's sake. As long as you go out there and you play to the caliber that DJ Swearinger is playing right now, tell yourself whatever you want, Athena. Go get him. So I think that's going to pretty much kind of wrap it up for me, guys. My apologies for last week. This situation with my job right now has got me traveling a lot. I'm right now in the process of looking at getting another setup to where I can travel and be able to produce this show while I'm on the road. I want to be able to try to start doing that. That may not necessarily be this season. That will more than likely be next season if I look at going into next season filming. But right now, if I don't get a video out on Sunday night, I may not get another video out till either Thursday or Friday. So with the distance that I have to travel, by the time I come back, we're almost looking at playing another game. So I really, really have to be super cautious about when I put these videos out, and assuming I don't have anything else going on, try to get them when I need them to get them in. So, great victory against the Dallas Cowboys. That hated rivalry that we are in with them. It's a great, great day to watch Dallas Cowboy fans in pain. That adds at least another year to my life. I swear, the euphoria that you feel does not go away after one day. It literally stays with you the whole week. And now we can revel in the euphoria of beating a team in a place where we don't have a whole lot of luck in winning. And we went into New York, and we did not necessarily impose our will, but we came out with a victory. An ugly victory, but a victory none the same. And now we're sitting at 5-2 with a great division record. And our injuries are mounting, but they're not nearly as bad as it could be. If we can maintain that, if Adrian can hold on to the football, he had a fumble against New York, which did not go well. It was good to see us continue with the running game after that. We didn't shy away from him, which is exactly what we want to do. Assuming that he does not get the dropsies on him, he needs to hold on to that football. But he's doing really, really well for us. And we need to shore up some of the things that aren't doing so well for us. Great job by Josh Doxson as well. I can't believe I didn't mention him. Our receivers are starting to get a little bit more confidence their quarterback and catching that football. At least a lot more than we did when we played against New Orleans. So that's good to see, us gaining confidence in that wide receiver core. So Josh Doxson right now is leading that charge. And when Jamison Crowder comes back, hopefully that gets better. So a lot of things to look forward to. We've got the Atlanta Falcons coming up next. That's not going to be a slouch of a game. A huge advantage for us being that Atlanta's going to have to play on the road. So they're going to have to come into D.C. and play in Landover. And we're not an easy team to beat, and we're especially not easy to beat at home. So I wish the Washington Redskins luck in that game. Hopefully we can pull out a victory there. After that, who is it that we have after that? I knew this schedule before I did this video. Now all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank. Taking a look at this schedule, we've got the Buccaneers that come up after that. The Buccaneers are a rolling bonfire at this point. That team's not looking too good. They didn't have too good of a game in this particular week either. They're sitting at 3-4. Coming up after that, who do we have after that? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not able to get to this fast enough right now. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers are after the Atlanta Falcons, and after that we've got, surprisingly at home, a really, really tough game in my opinion in the Houston Texans. And then we go on the road against Dallas. That's going to be Texas. Going to be the 2 weeks in Texas, which is not going to be good. Even though we got the Texans at home, the Texans play very, very well on the road, and I have not watched a whole lot of. I may watch a game of theirs and see how they're doing this year. But anyways, leave your comments down in the comments section, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you guys have any ideas. Again, Hopefully I'll be able to get out a video the night after we play the Atlanta Falcons and see how it is that we do there. And that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. For us fans, the Twin Feather, we ride together. Redskins for life. Peace out. We'll catch you next time.